On behalf of Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple, our festival co-directors, and Teamwork Arts, the festival producer, with Adelaide Festival Centre's OzAsia Festival, we welcome you to this virtual session of JLF Adelaide, presented in partnership with the OzAsia Talk Series. Typically, we would have been there in person at the Adelaide Festival Centre to welcome each of you, but COVID-19 continues to put paid to the best laid plans. Our session today is Drop the Mic. Amit Majmudar, Gina Williams, Guy House, Manal Younus, and Jasmine Core. Weaving questions of politics, religion, love, and identity through their words, poets make powerful storytellers and commentators. Manal Younus's first book of poem, Reap, was published in 2015. She's also the founder of Soul Lounge, a monthly open mic night that centers the voices of people of color. Novelist, translator, and radiologist Amit Majmudar is the first Poet Laureate of Ohio. His poetry has appeared in the Best of the Best American Poetry 25th Anniversary Edition, as well as the Norton Introduction to Literature. Singer-songwriter Gina Williams and guitarist Guy House have won Australia's prestigious Indigenous Act of the Year for 5 years. Writer, illustrator, and poet Jasmine Kaur explores the themes of feminism, womanhood, social justice, and love. Together, they bring the intensity and passion of the spoken word to this vibrant session of readings and performances. The session is available to view on our Facebook page, JLF Litfest, and on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF, as well as on the OzAsia Festival channels at OzAsia Festival and YouTube Adelaide Festival Centre. Please do remember to comment by typing it into the comment section below. Ladies and gentlemen, drop the mic. Amit Majmudar, Gina Williams, Guy House. Amit Majmudar is a widely published poet, novelist, and essayist. His latest collection is What He Did in Solitary, and his latest novel is Soar. The former first Poet Laureate of his state, he works as a diagnostic and nuclear radiologist in Ohio, where he lives with his wife and 3 children. Amit, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Thank you, JLF Adelaide, for having me out virtually. And I'm very grateful for all the support that you've shown me and that you've shown the art of poetry. The first poem I'm going to read to you is from my collection that I published back in 2016. It's called Dothead, is the name of the collection. And one of the poems in it that ended up years later, now in this year, having an uncanny relevance is a poem that I wrote in this 2016 collection called Pandemic Ghazal. And it's a ghazal whose refrain is the word virus. And it's kind of, uncanny how these sorts of things can, just take on a new relevance and a new resonance later on. And poetry has that ability, I think. And so this is called Pandemic Ghazal. Virus infinitely versatile. Virus of guardrail, iPod, turnstile. Virus eager to go the extra mile. Virus seaborne, colonizing the enchanted isles. Virus airborne, whistling all the while. Virus discreetly flashing holster and assassin smile. Virus smuggling fever up the Red Nile. Virus of folk song, urban legend, official denial. Virus squatting on the sky, chameleon style. Virus in New York City, scheming how to make a pile. Virus never standing trial. Virus believing God gave it guile. Virus making a killing and making it in style. Now, ironically, again, in my next collection that I published this year, which I put together, well before 2020, and that's What He Did in Solitary. I have another poem about viruses, and this one's literally called Virus, and I originally published it back in 2017, immediately after Dothead came out. So in the spirit of, COVID being everywhere, I figured, a poem about viruses should replicate itself, I guess. And so here I'll read this other one that also has uncanny, relevance now. It's called Virus. Neither video nor bacterium, doorknob slobber, droplet-born mysterium, born of nothing, knowing only how to breed, like some dandelion clockless dandelion seed, protein, hijacker, safe cracker, magical papyrus scrap of genome, sealed with a cork to sail the maelstrom, mimetic malice, code and chalice, yours the message all the muses sing. Purity of heart is to will one thing. The next poem I'm going to read to you kind of dovetails with where I'm from and where I grew up. I've lived here in Ohio almost my whole life. And this poem that I'm going to read to you is kind of what it's like to grow up in Ohio in the suburbs in the 80s and still have such a really strong connection to my, religious faith and my ancestry and my heritage and my tradition. And so it's the title poem of my 2016 collection. It's called Dothead. And I think I probably don't have to explain this, but in the final line, there's a reference to Shiva Nataraja, who of course is the form of Shiva, who dances the dance of cosmic destruction at the end of time in a sphere of fire. But the poem itself begins in a high school cafeteria in suburban Ohio. And it goes like this, Dothead. Well, yes, I said. My mother wears a dot. I know they said third eye in class, but it's not an eye, not like that. It's not some freak third eye that opens on your forehead like on some Chernobyl baby. What it means is, what it's showing is, there's this unseen eye on the inside, and she's marking it. It's how the X that says where treasure's at is not the treasure, but as good as treasure. All right. What I said wasn't half so measured. In fact, I didn't say a thing. Their laughter had made my mouth go dry. Lunch was after world history. That week was India. Myths, caste system, sati, all the greatest hits. The white kids I was sitting with were friends, at least as I defined a friend back then. So wait, said Nick, does your mom wear a dot? I nodded and I caught a smirk on Todd. She wear it to the shower and to bed? While Jesse sucked his chocolate milk and Brad was getting ready for another stab. I said, hand me that ketchup packet there. And Nick said, what? I snatched it, twitched the tear, and squeezed a dollop on my thumb and worked circles till the red planet entered the house of war. And on my forehead, for the world to see, my third eye burned those schoolboys in their seats, their flesh in little puddles underneath, pale pools where Nataraja cooled his feet. Next poem I'll read to you is kind of a funny, sad poem. It's kind of a poem that's on a serious theme, but the verse of it, the lilt of it, the rhyme of it tells your ear that you're reading almost comic verse. And it's that difference that I was playing with, that contrast that I was playing with, that incongruity between form and content. And it's about going through, airport security, looking like this. And it's called TSA. Off with the wristwatch, the Reeboks, the belt. My laptop's in a bin. I dig out my keys for my jeans and do my best Midwestern grin. At O'Hare, at Atlanta, at Dallas, Fort Worth, it happens every trip. At LaGuardia, Logan, and Washington Dulles, the customary strip is never enough for a young brown male whose name comes up at random. Lest the randomness of it be doubted, observe how Myrtle's searched in tandem, how Doris's six-pack of Boost has been seized and Ethel gets the wand. How polite of the screeners to sham paranoia when what they really want is to pick out the swarthiest, scruffiest of us and pat us top to toe. My fellow Ahmeds and my alien Alis, Muhammad alias Mo, my buddies from med school, my doubles partners, my dark, unshaven brothers, whose names overlap with the crazies and God fiends, ourselves, the goateed other. And the last poem I'll read to you from that 2016 collection, Dothead, is a poem about writing. It's a poem about being in, more than one culture. And it's called To the Hyphenated Poets. Richer than mother's milk is half and half. Friends of two minds, redouble your craft. Our shelves are hives, ourselves a royal jelly. May we at Benares and Boston, Philly and Delhi collect our birthright nectar. No swarm our own. We must be industrious, both queen and drone. Being two beings requires a rage for rigor, rewritable memory, hybrid vigor. English herself is a crossbred mother mutt, primly promiscuous and hot to rut. Oneness, pure chimera. Splendor is spliced. Make your halves into something twice your size. Your tongue a hyphen joining nation to nation. Recombine. Become a thing of your own creation, a many-minded mongrel. The line's renewal, self-made and twofold, soul and dual. And now for my final poem, I'll read a poem that kind of dovetails with the current moment in America where we're on the verge of a historic election. And it's about the times, it's about and it's also about kind of a dream of America that has gone away or going away. And it's called Of Age. And it's written to my sons. You've come of age in the age of migrations. The board tilts and the bodies roll west. Fanaticisms come back into fashion, come back with a vengeance. In this new country, there's no gravitas, no grace. The ancient Chevys migrate west and plunge like maddened buffalo into a canyon. Where the oil slick geese go, no one knows. Maybe the Holland Tunnel, because they take it for the monstrous turbine promised them in prophecy. I brought you to this world, and I do not regret it. The sky's still blue for now. I want to show you an island where the trees are older than redwoods ever since Prospero turned them into books. You'll meet him when you're ready. For now, though, study this list of endangered species. It's incomplete, of course, since all species are in some danger nowadays. This is the country I bequeath to you, the country I bequeath you to. You've come of age and you're inheriting the whole house, busted pipe and splintered decks and all. This is your people. This, the mythic West, your grandparents wished to reach and reached. The oceans surge, but the boat is up on blocks. There's no America to sail to anymore. Again, thank you very much, JLF, for having me out, and I look forward to hearing all the other poets. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amit. That was absolutely brilliant, and much of what you said, especially pale pools when Nataraja cooled his heels, awesome. And of course, where the virus made the stash, that continues to happen. An age of migration where fanaticism comes back into fashion, as we're seeing. Best wishes with the elections. And I do hope that the result suits everybody. Coming up next is Jasmine Core. She's a writer, illustrator, and poet living on unceded Stolo First Nations territory. Named a rising star by Vogue magazine and a writer to watch by CBC Books, she has toured internationally to connect with youth through the power of artistic expression. Her debut poetry and prose collection, When You Ask Me Where I'm Going, was shortlisted for the Goodreads Choice Award. Her sophomore novel, If I Tell You the Truth, is releasing in January 2021. Jasmine, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here reading poems and sharing space with so many talented poets. I am releasing my next book very soon. If I Tell You the Truth is coming out this January with Harper Teen, and I cannot wait. But today I'm going to be reading from my debut poetry collection, which released last year, titled When You Ask Me Where I'm Going. This is a book that is very dear to my heart, and I cannot wait to share with you all today. I want to say thank you to Amit for sharing such beautiful and timely poems with us that speak so powerfully to our political landscape today, and it seems always this world that we live in has not been hospitable for people of color and for racialized people since, forever, and nothing really changes in the time of COVID. So today I'm going to be sharing a few poems that deal with my experience being a Punjabi Sikh woman navigating a world that is not always so friendly to women who look like me or to people who look like me. As a Sikh woman who ties a dastar, a turban, I'm very used to strangers on the street kind of staring at me and then looking away, but also glaring and sometimes swearing at me just because my identity makes them uncomfortable. And I think people are sometimes under the assumption that when you look like this, when you look different, you just kind of get used to the hate that you receive. And I quietly tolerate a lot, but I also have to release that emotion somewhere. And that's part of why I write. That's part of why I tell stories and I write spoken word and I perform to share what is truly going on within. And I think that those words that are shared, they resonate because unfortunately my reality is shared by so many people around the world and so many women especially. So my opening poem is titled To Live is Political. This is a poem that I wrote that was inspired by the glares that I get as I walk down the street for my identity. He tells me he doesn't care about politics, and I am lost. I am a brown woman born on land stolen, sacrificed, and then silenced. I am a brown woman born into a body that turns heads, that only house glares that ask me to leave, mouths that spit blood towards my kind, hands and fists and forces that want to push me back to where I come from. While where I come from screams in ways that go unheard, where I come from is buried under blistering earth and burning mines that are set aflame by a state that brings kerosene instead of water when my people are thirsty. Where I come from is being dug out of the dried soil by people young enough and old enough to demand more than justice from those who have tried and failed to crush them. He tells me he doesn't care about politics. And I wonder if he can see the political boundaries on my body, the conflict zones between my shoulder blades, the border built between my tongue and me, the partition carved into my palms, all the ways in which it is political for me to live. So my next piece is on the next page. This is a poem that I wrote after watching an IMAX film in which an astronaut was observing the Earth with no borders, with no man-made rules and laws. And my mind went to Carl Sagan and how Carl Sagan described this world as this tiny pale blue dot, and all of our conflict, all of our hate for one another, it all exists on this tiny blue dot. But what if we were to step back and observe the world in a different way? The sun rises, and Israel drags his feet across Gaza's chest, settles across her skin and waits empty-eyed for it to tear. And a white man sits atop America and calls brown skin a furnace, says that we consume each other in smoke and flame, that it is better we burn each other to ash than intrude on his property. And a cop in Punjab empties out a cartridge, cleans it out in a young, sick's body and names it necessity, decides to side with a system that puts food on the table and bodies in rivers. And a woman floats in space, stares at the earth as the sun cowers behind it, watches existence light up in twinkling villages and cities, wishes humanity could step back to stare at itself. So as you all know, so much of my work is driven by women. In my heart of hearts, I write for women, especially for South Asian women, especially for Punjabi women, and especially for Sikh women. And as I think about this world that we're living in now, you know, a lot of places in the world are on lockdown and you know, people are navigating public spaces the way that they used to, but that doesn't mean that this world is suddenly now safer for women. In fact, it's much the opposite. So this poem that I'm about to share is called My Name Is Not Sheila. And it was inspired by the Bollywood movie, Sheila Ki Jawani. And I remember when I was, you know, watching this film and Katrina Kaif comes on the screen for one of her songs titled My Name Is Sheila. There's about 50 to 60 men standing around her and almost like just thirsting over her and almost wanting to reach for her. And you see Katrina in the film, and she's just smiling gracefully and ethereally. And I couldn't help but think watching this that in the real world, in real life, a situation like that would be frightening for most women, but we tend to find that Bollywood has a way of washing over sexual violence towards women or abuse towards women and romanticizing it. So that's what this poem is dedicated to, that song and what it inspired. My name is not Sheila, but I'm wondering if I have the right to a Javani or a life at all in which I am not pulled apart hip by hip. In Bollywood, a woman is meant to remain calm while 53 men encircle her with mouths watering. Just as calm as she must remain in each of these streets where her compliance keeps her alive. Munni badnaam hui, but her attackers still walk the streets honor intact because every single day in the world's largest democracy, the word izzat takes precedence over the testimonies of 95 women and God knows how many others whose voices have been stifled. When Durga stepped out into the battlefield, her oppressors' heads hanging from her neck, I wonder if she was met with respect or whether they viewed her skin as a land that hadn't yet been conquered. My next poem builds on my last piece, and I think that this poem speaks for itself. They taught her that hell existed at the curve of her waist because the shape of her body left boys wanting, tempted them like apples hanging from trees, like fruit that wanted to be picked. made their eyes wander, left too much to the imagination, too little to the imagination. He taught her that hell existed in the hourglass of her being, in the small of her back, in the movement of her legs, when he invaded her because the sin was too tempting. And she prayed for forgiveness. Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to think back to my childhood growing up in Canada. So I grew up in a small town called Abbotsford. In the neighborhood I live in the immigrant neighborhood I live in, almost everyone in the vicinity is Punjabi. The school that I went to was a public school in Canada, but 97% of the students shared my ethnic background. And it was a very interesting way to go to school, but it was also important to note that while the students themselves were Punjabi, almost all of the staff at the school were white. And I think that when you were a young Punjabi child growing up, you were taught to always respect your elders and never to question things. So when teachers would do things that were racist, we didn't really know that that was wrong. And we also didn't know that we were allowed to say anything, because that's not how we were taught to think about those who were older than us. And I remember this one teacher who got really angry at a group of boys in my class. And instead of blaming their actions on them, he blamed it on the fact that they were Punjabi. So I wrote this poem in memory of him, because this racist teacher was the reason why I chose to become a teacher as an adult, to challenge things like this. When I was 10 years old, I had no idea that Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie would one day describe the danger of a single story. But there was a moment, a definitive moment, when her words hung low in the air in this very desi public school classroom. When a man much older than us, much more powerful than us, and much paler than the little Punjabi faces that looked up at him, was angered by the actions of a few boys in our class. He said, "You boys act like this because Indo-Canadian dads have no manners, because they treat you like little princes, because they have no respect. And when you are 10 years old in Punjabi, you don't talk back to adults, let alone your teacher. But you wonder things you cannot yet wrap your entire heart around. Like, how can he talk about my dad when he's never met my dad before? And why are we all in trouble when two boys did something wrong? And are our families really as bad as he says they are?" So you grow up searching for answers between the covers of books and conversations on Twitter and your own tongue that begins to grow poems. But some of the questions only become dense and bottomless. A well within you soon overflowing with murky water, like, what if they call this one story every single story? And what if they read these words and think they have walked these very same halls? And can I tell my people what I saw without a white man interrupting to tell us he was right? And for my very last poem that I'm going to share, this is the poem that inspired the title of this book, When You Ask Me Where I'm Going. The next time you ask me where I'm going, please recall that I am 3 parts indecision and 1 part reckless abandon. That I've seldom bothered to look back at the wreckage I've left in my wake and will never be bothered to master the flames at my fingertips anyways. I am not your poem. I was never your brushstroke. I am not your tragedy or your failed attempts to find meaning. I was never an answer to a question. So when you ask me like dawn if I will rise to your occasion, do not be disappointed when I reply with the dusk. That is all I've ever known. Thank you so much.
Jasmine, that was just absolutely beautiful. And thank you for becoming a teacher. Absolutely. And what you said about your own tongue that begins to grow poems and quietly tolerating a lot and a reality shared by so many women across the world, and glares that ask you to leave. And of course, the reality that we see around us today, where Bollywood continues to romanticize sexual violence against women, and where instead of focusing on perhaps mental health and the reasons why somebody decided to take their lives, they blamed another woman for all of the fragilities that all of us know exist within our minds. But thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. Coming up next is Manal Younus, an Australian-based storyteller from Eritrea, who believes the language and stories are the very fabric of our existence. Using her writing and performances, Younus explores different aspects of life from perseverance, identity, travel, and truth. In 2015, she released her first book of poetry called Reap. The same year, she founded Soul Lounge, a monthly open mic night that centers the voices of people of color. Over to you, Manal.
Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging that I'm here on Kaurna country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional elders of this country. I'd like to acknowledge elders past, present, and also future, and the ongoing connection to this land. It's such a pleasure to be here. I was lucky enough to be in Jaipur for JLF earlier this year. So to feel like a part of that community, but then to have everybody's presence here in the city that I live in Adelaide, it's a really beautiful kind of merging of worlds. So thank you, and it's my pleasure. Excuse this, I'm in the middle of creating a feature wall of writing, so it's halfway done. So it's kind of like a bit of a mess. But I want to start off with a poem that I haven't shared in a while, but that means a lot to me. Something as simple as tea, I think carries so much symbolism across so many cultures. And so this poem just explores that a little bit. I'm going to read it. It's from my book Reap, which was mentioned earlier in the introduction. So, tea is life, I once said, as I searched through the leaves for directions to the sky, while sipping on my third cup from my third pot for the day. Each leaf vital to ensure my tongue was pleased, each leaf its own story in the life that I might lead. I decide, then I worry. It takes so long. The pressure builds. My blood boils before I pour it over my future and watch the colors change as they organize themselves, coded. I stare so intently. The days are long without it. I feel lost and clueless. Rubus or addis, fruits and herbs, any will suffice. But I cannot drink in peace when there's dust on my spoon, stains on my vessel. It is the wrong brand of milk. Lipton is so overrated. And my teeth are yellowing, tongue drying. But tea is wisdom. There's no such thing as too much. It's all in there. Sweet, bitter, strong. My mother only drank tea from Khartoum and Kassala. She carried it wrapped in layers in her suitcase, but only brought one change of clothes. Tea is peace. We'd sip away from tiny glasses how our grandmother made it. Don't drink until you've eaten, she would warn. But tea is my water, my lifeline, my peace and my wisdom. Tea is life, I once said, as I searched through the leaves for directions to the sky while sipping on my third cup from my third pot. Then I looked up. Thank you. I tend to often listen to the stories of everybody else who's in the lineup before I decide my poem. So I come in thinking I know exactly what I want to perform, but I'm usually so affected by everybody else's words that I end up changing it. I just want to say thank you so much for what you shared earlier, both to Amit and to Jasmine. They were both like just your voices are so beautiful and so penetrating and all the things that you shared. But there's one poem that I want to share that you both reminded me of, and I think that it's because of that that inability to separate the political and the personal. And this poem, I felt it a lot today as I was at this school actually just before this morning, first thing this morning, and I just I don't know, there was something about the confidence of the young women there. They're leading and they're, especially the young women of color in the school. And so I want to share this poem maybe as a tribute to people of color at this time, to Indigenous peoples, to people who are oppressed. And I think that resonates across countries because it happens all around the world. So this poem's called Ashy Knees. Don't kneel or crawl, or your knees will go black. She was taught to hate her ashy knees. See, they were black and black was bad, but she was black and don't call yourself black. You're brown, she'd hear. As though that should make her feel better, but still not even the black boys would look at her. So she wanted her lips to be as thin as other girls, hips as slim as other girls, but with fingertips that don't match her knuckles. She was the scapegoat for lies, the victim of exclusion, should she be here or there, until she came to the conclusion that maybe she doesn't belong anywhere. Introduced as Sarah's little black friend, and what's your name again? And can I just call you Mia then? Skin tone meant we got pushed in the schoolyard, pretended to be tough, but when they called our bluff, she landed on those knees, making them darker, ashier, her angrier in the Afro hair houses, scalp burning with hydrochloride. I'd wander down aisles while trying to find something to scrub off parts of this child. These ashy knees needed creams. These nappy locks should be stopped. This rainbow of browns looked down on. And why was I praised for having such white palms? These arms changed by sunlight, so stay out of the sun, she'd hear, as though that should make her feel better. But still, not even the black boys would look at her, so she wanted her. Give me. So stay out of the sun, I'd hear. You're getting too dark. Such simple words enough to spark a disdain for this blackness, or you'll look like a slave, as though slavery was some bad choice our ancestors made. She said, you're not even black, just tanned. You've got skin we'd kill for. Well, tell that to those who got killed for it. Police stopped billed for it. Skin peeled from toxins, never healed from it. Parents stolen from grandparents. Land grabs, displacement, derogated and shamed. Second-class citizens on our own lands that you've claimed. And if only it was as simple as color or varying body types. But for generations, these would determine our fates, and they still do in so many places, still threatened by our faces. So we get pulled apart, and they take what they feel like taking: black lips, black curves, black hair, skin, language, culture, land. But all these parts make a whole soul that knows no notion of giving in. We will hold ourselves together. This team, dark team, light skin means we divide us, but on what basis, when even the palest can come from the blackest of dust? Just by uniting, just by existing, we not only resist, we define resistance. See, I was taught to hate these ashy knees, but they tell me stories of those times even I tried to rid me of me, but didn't succeed. Thank you, ashy knees. Thank you. I just have one more poem to share. And this one is a reminder constantly to myself. I think that, on that theme of the whole personal and political, sometimes it's easy to get caught up when those lines are so blurred, caught up and exhausted because there's just so much. There's so much going on all the time, all around the world, and there's so much to absorb. There's so much going on in our own lives. And so this poem's just a reminder that it is okay, it is good, it is very good to take some time for yourself and to actually find a way to enjoy life in amongst all of the chaos. And I think that art has a beautiful way of doing that. So this poem is called Can We? I miss the simplicity of positivity. See, dancing once elated me until every stage my toes tap seemed to decree deeper, darker pages. This rage ringing relentlessly, I couldn't balance the beauty and bereft. I couldn't work out the steps, tripping on my pirouettes, though no regrets. Now I let revelry replace my destructive mindsets. So can we just dance? Like leaves fallen on the road, sweeping swiftly down streets, round corners to new episodes. Can we speak through our movement like some kind of code? Reviving lost languages, we, light and latent, listen like learning is life's love. We could salsa to the whistling wind, only soil beneath the soles of our steady steps, serene, but not sedated, content, but not complacent, forgiving ferociously, but cautiously. Won't you forgive me? For I am bound to step on your toes, to let emotions flow and treat you terribly when overwhelmed with woes, and we both know how it goes. We might have to dance slow, somber, clinging closely to memories of cool caress from those we let go, praying we let them know that we let love show shades of hope and not just shadows. As the sky does beautiful things above the ocean, we could dance toward the sunlight, toes wet with warm waves moving effortlessly, and when we're heavy, we can cry crystal tears to sweet songs sung by bright birds. On those dismal days, we'll dance until the pain fades, until the raindrops dripping drop on dry terrain and the barren becomes fertile again. Though towers may always tower over us and greatness may always be waiting over the next cusp, it may remain something that we just cannot harness. Can we dance regardless? With a backdrop of vivid visions of victory, can we fall victim to adventure, doubting our doubts until they're too doubtful to doubt us, fostering long forgotten feelings of freedom manifest in our queendom where our anthems are peace, prayer, and poetry? So can we? Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on this lineup, and assalamu alaikum. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was just beautiful. Tell us a little bit about the wall of your wall behind you.
Well, really, I've been going through all old notebooks that from the time when I was like 16 until 18. And I found so many pieces that I had abandoned. So now I'm actually looking at using them again. And so I thought I'd put them all onto the computer, but as I did, instead of getting rid of the paper, I thought I'll just make a feature wall. And I guess it's my way of appreciating things that I may have grown out of, or things that I have forgotten about, but they're still so valuable and was such a big part of creating not just who I am, but all of my writing and all of the future works. So that's kind of what I'm trying to put together here.
That's beautiful. And may you continue to drink that tea. Tea is peace and tea is wisdom. Absolutely stunning. Thank you so much, Manal Younus, for that beautiful sharing. And now we have Gina Williams and Gaug House, ancient language, contemporary music, stunning vocals, guitar brilliance. Gina Williams and Gaug House use music to highlight one of the most beautiful and rare languages. Noongar language of the southern corner of Western Australia that we were lucky to hear in person last year, roughly at the same time. But with less than 400 Noongar language speakers left, their work is about what connects one to the other. Over to you, Gina Williams and Guy Gauss.
Thank you. Kaya, ngang Gina nijapal Guy, ngalak jerp and nunuk Gina, ngalak jerp and nijapuja, ngang knitting, knitting. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Gina and this is Guy, and we feel really lucky to be coming to you from a place we call Burloo. You would know it as Perth, Western Australia. This is very unusual for us, but what a lovely experience it is, and what an amazing lineup. It's hard to follow all these people, but we will do our best. There are 400 speakers of my language left, and Guy and I are committed to sharing with people and how beautiful and special this language of this land is. What we do is informed by 4 things: Kort, Mort, Buja and Kolanga. So our hearts, our family, the people we choose as family, our land, and Kolanga is legacy. So making sure that we use our present power to change the future and ensure that those that follow us come into a world of goodness and kindness and love. This song is the title track to our latest album, Kolanga.
You do it very good.
Yeah. So, Jinda Kumba Karango, Ken Jinda Ngang Kedlak Jinan, Ngang Kodak Karak, Kumba Kodak Karak, Nija Kodak Karak, Ngang Kedlak Jinan. Starlight, star bright, the first star I see tonight. I wish I may. I wish that I might have that wish that I wish tonight. And tonight we dream, and we do as dreamers do. And may all of our wishes indeed come true. And on this night, under stars so bright, I wish for the Kollanga, for the children. Nukit munding kulanga, kundam kuling ali bola, nunang mutbal kalya kul, kanyin du kanyin nunang kul. Lay down to sleep, my child. Dreams of flying in the sky. Your family will never part. Hold them safe and close to your heart. Nukit munding kulanga, bina kuling kedlaka. Nunang mutbang warin ka, ngalang undin kulanga. Lay down to sleep, my child. Shooting stars go through the night. Your family is singing for our child who's sleeping. Nukit munding kulanga, benang kulin bora, yahi nija kerala. Nukit munding kulanga. Lay down to sleep, my child, for tomorrow's coming soon. Now here it is, the night. Lay down to sleep, oh Thank you. I'm a product of the village. Very grateful for the 4 sets of parents that I have. My biological parents that made me, my adopted parents who chose me, my first foster family that rescued me, and my second foster family that showed me tough love. I'm very grateful for the investment of that village because it's meant that I can raise children as a mother tiger now. I met my biological mother as an adult, and when Guy and I first started writing songs in language, she was a bit nervous and a bit worried that we might get into trouble. And she kept saying things like, oh, well, why don't you just let the language die? People didn't want to hear it before. Why should they hear it now? And my response was always, because it's beautiful and it's our birthright. And why wouldn't you want to hear this language? And I thought I could argue this for a long time, or I could just show you. So I wrote this song for my mother. She was part of what we call the stolen generations. She was taken from her mother, who was taken as a 4-year-old and marched 600 kilometres from her homelands and then put on a boat and brought to the southwest of Western Australia. And so I wrote this song called Nyityok Barnup, which is Little Orphan Girl. And in this song, little orphan girl has no mother, she has no father. Little orphan girl, she has no love and she doesn't understand why. And the authorities come and they tell little orphan girl, you have no mother and father, you'll never see them again, they've gone far away. But this little orphan girl, she doesn't believe it, she doesn't buy it. She looks up at the night sky and in amongst the stars, she sees her family there. So she goes back to the authorities and she tells them, I do have a family. I keep them here in my heart. we played this to my mum. She didn't understand the words, so I translated it for her, and we played it again and again and again. And eventually she said to me, "You'll have to teach me my language." This story is not unique to my family or Noongar people. It's not even unique to Indigenous Australia. The establishment has been firmly in the business of taking children from all corners of the globe, and many never get to go back to their heartlands. Many never get to return to their families. And so this song is for all the stolen kids. It's called Nyit Yok Bana, the Orphan Girl. Nyit Yok Bana, you are not, you are Mambas. Nyit Yok Bana, Nyit Yok Bana, you are Karajan, you are Jerubin, Naju, Wajala Kulim Balbana, Yok Wanginin, Nunuk Yuaknan, were Mamba Parang. Nunuk Yuachinang, Nunangang, were Mamba, Palap Kachali, Mutkulin. Nyit Yok Bana, Bal Yirachina, Kedelak Ngachinda, Bal Murdali Jayaken. Da 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 da. Nyit Yok Bana, Wajala Wanganin, Nijabala Nanyang Mo, Nanyang Kura. Thank you. The last song that we want to do is my adopted mother's story. My adopted mum and I had a very often very prickly relationship in that, you know, my earliest memories of her are very good. She was always very fussy about her appearance. She was very beautiful, and she always smelled of lavender and Lux soap. And as I got a bit older, her wounds, her trauma began to emerge, and she became an alcoholic, and she left us so that she could live with a man who used to beat her to within an inch of her life. And my dad, after my mum left, my dad died a couple of years later of a heart attack. But in my heart, I always felt like he'd died of a broken heart, and I blamed her. And then the last conversation I had with her was that she told me that I was adopted as an adult, and it felt like she'd taken my father away from me all over again. She killed him all over again, and it broke my heart, and I found it very difficult to reconcile that. But as I've gotten older, I realised nobody chooses this. People don't choose to become an alcoholic. People don't suddenly wake up and think, oh, I'm going to go and shack up and live with someone who's going to beat me to, you know, and almost kill me on a regular basis. And so I wrote this song for her. It's called Mali, which is the black swan.
That's all.
Mali, Mali, Kwabadak yak mortgage near and Mali, Core, Jakarun, Munam Yang, Janpu Jakananko, Black Swan, Black Swan. Beautiful woman, strong, elegant one, oh, your heart so broken, and your tears shine upon the earth, Mali, Mali. Wabadak yak portage near in Mali, Balapwara, Wangamin, Nunukwara, Bidi Coolin, Black Swan, Black Swan. Beautiful woman, strong, elegant one, how their words set to wound, put you on to this path. Mali, no. You watching nang nini yak nang kulang bawat ku nini yak you ku Mali nang kor kalye ku nunuk nang kwabedak mort. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, JLF. Thank you to everybody. It's been beautiful. What a privilege.
Thank you so much, Gina and Guy. You know, the one thing that's missing from all of this is there should have been an ocean of applause at the end of every performance today. But Zoom doesn't quite allow that. But here's a silent one. And thank you for that really beautiful sharing and our promise of bringing you out to the Jaipur Literature Festival, whenever that may be again. We will still look forward to hosting you there. And I'm assuming Kalunga is available online for people to buy on Amazon or some such.
Yes, if you go to our website, ginawilliams.com.au.
That's Gina.
That's me, is 8 years old. And yeah, you know, like, yeah, we just love to connect with people and share language. There's lyrics and translations in the booklets. We hope that, you know, one day there will be more than 370 speakers of my language.
So thank you. That was beautiful. And what you said about taking children from refugees, well, that still exists in some parts of the world even today, where they're taking away even infants, even as they cross the borders into those countries. And but I hope for all of us, Gina's words of tonight we dream and may our wishes come true, actually come true. And that's what we leave you with. Thank you, Amit, Jasmin, Manal, Gina, and Guy. And thank you all for watching and being such a great audience. And we would like to thank the OzAsia Festival and the Adelaide Festival Centre for their support. And we hope to be back next year for the physical edition of the festival, God willing and COVID willing. So till then, take care, stay masked, and dream on. And we hope that those dreams and wishes, as Gina said, will come true. Thank you.